Oh, the man of the hour, right there.
There you are. We've been holding them all for you. Just kidding.
Okay, everybody. I want to call this meeting to order. Let the record reflect that we have a quorum, and Robert called earlier this weekend, said he was not able to attend the meeting and asked to be excused, and the same with Joe Booker. And I have a email from Mr. Booker, which I will read a little bit later. So show them as excused, and with that, everybody else is shown present and in their seats. So the meeting is called to order. Before I go to public comments, I'd like for you to understand where we're at, and I enjoy seeing each and every one of you. Sometimes we've been seeing an awful lot of each other as of late, and that's okay. But we had an emergency meeting last week, then we had a regular meeting. We had items on the agenda that we decided to roll over until the next regular meeting, which should be, for members who have been keeping track, comes once every 3 months. But this board elected among ourselves that there was a lot going on, and this was in months ago, that we needed to call ourselves into meeting more often than just once every 3 months. So we've been meeting monthly as a motion that was passed here. But as of late, we've had to meet for a variety of reasons, which you know more than as well as anybody. We're having to meet, and tonight is one of those special kind of meetings. What happened on the last meeting is Mr. Valdez, who just joined us, talked about utilizing the county ordinance that put us together for the purpose of hiring a consultant to work with this particular board at this particular time for a variety of reasons, which we will be discussing here in just a few minutes. So the purpose of tonight's meeting, to follow the Open Meetings Act, is we pulled this meeting together on Friday. So I want to thank you, but I especially want to thank the members of the board who again pulled themselves together out of their own time for this special meeting tonight. So on the agenda, we'll have some public comments, but would ask that you can, if you possibly can, limit your public comments to the issue at hand tonight, and that is the hiring of a consultant for this particular board's needs. Nothing else on the agenda. And then we'll go to adjournment after that. We do still plan on having a regular monthly meeting, which will be about 3 weeks from now, unless something comes up that would cause us to bring ourselves together again. With that in mind, although I may go back to it, for those of here for public comment, please raise your hand if anybody's going to be making any kind of public comment. So, again, anybody here for a public comment? We're at that point.
I'll address it. Okay, so you guys are looking to hire a consultant to basically investigate at the jail, correct? So my suggestion is you have employed a major at the jail who is with the OPS, Major Vigil here. You could have him advise you on the investigations, ongoing and completed or whatever you need to know, instead of hiring a consultant, especially in the budget crisis where you're at right now with the county. That I think would be a positive item to utilize so that you can bring him in and have him advise you. He can also keep those investigations, the confidentiality of any of them secure, so you're not worried about breaking any of that. So I think he'd be a good resource to draw on and utilize for you, since he's already aware of every single one of those investigations that are ongoing currently. And since he's at the jail, he knows what's going on there and can give you a better and much more clear picture of what's going on than a consultant who's already outside is not going to be able to give you.
Okay, thank you.
That was my only comment.
Appreciate that very much. Any other public comment? If not, I'm going to go ahead and move to item number 3, which is the hiring of the consultant for discussion and possible vote. What I want to do is for the members and for the members on the committee in the audience and the committee members here. I'm going to get some important points, but brief points that pulled us together, and that's ordinance number 2015-19, an ordinance establishing the management oversight system for the Bernalillo County detention facilities. So there's many points, but I'm going to read you some highlights that pertain to tonight's meeting. There's a purpose of this ordinance to create a system of oversight to ensure that the county adult detention facilities operate in accordance with nationally recognized best practices for jail operations and limit the population of adult detention facilities at the capacity that is safe and secure. Section 3A, an oversight board is hereby created and is designed to guide the county to operate a safe and secure detention facilities that strive to meet or exceed national standards and constitutional requirements. Of course, the duties of the board are to ensure that the standards for detention facilities in the county protect the health, safety, and welfare of Bernalillo County residents, staff, and the inmate population. That is our overall intention. We have a variety of duties. One of them is reviewing the reports provided to the board of the county detention facilities. The majority of the board finds that the response to an incident or an investigation by the county detention facility is inadequate, not defined as inadequate, that may authorize audits or investigations to be conducted by an independent investigative firm for possible non-compliance with Operation ACA, PREA, Prison Rape Elimination Act, standards, potential violations of use of force policies, or potential failures to meet best practices, and it goes on. But I think what I wanted to share with you there, and we could get into the details a little bit more, is tonight's meeting is to talk about that particular issue. We have within the ordinance the ability, should we so choose, to hire a consultant or someone to help us meet that section that is going to be responsible for investigation. And it's at this point in time that I'm going to read a short email so that you understand where Mr. Booker is involved. Rick, as I told you earlier, I won't be able to attend today's meeting. I've given you my suggestions, which you gave to me verbally, and supportive of the decision made by the DFO board. I only advise I would add is I recommend that whatever decision is made, it does not interfere with the ongoing current investigation. And I think that's something that will be brought up here this afternoon, is that whatever investigative needs we have in this particular committee, is that they also understand that we're not going to be interfering, and it's very specific in the ordinance. It's not our job to interfere with any ongoing investigations that may be happening up there. But we have a right. And so this meeting again is called because we needed to look at the needs of this particular board, the individuals who sit on it, and the information that we'll be getting, and maybe it comes to that time. So with that, I know that Rocky had initially brought it forth, and so we could have something to work with. I'm going to turn it over to you, Rocky, if you would get us to that where we left off last week. I asked you at that time to think about where you're at and put together a scope of services that you might feel that is necessary for us to proceed, and when appropriate, we'll take your motion to move on that. So I'm going to turn the table over to you at this particular point in time, sir.
Okay. I believe the county, thank you, Mr. Chairman, thank you, everybody. The county has some companies on contract with a scope of services already. We can modify it with the help of the county manager and anybody else from the jail. So I didn't specifically cite any specific instructions in there. But I would like to read this before I make the motion. This work that the company will do will ensure that the committee meets its obligations as specified in the ordinance. It is my intent, and the committee's as well, that MDC staff will be in compliance with operational ACA and or Prison Rape Elimination Act, PREA standards. This will include potential violations of use of force policy and the potential failures to meet the best practices and are investigated, and those proper reporting procedures are conducted and appropriate improvements made. And everything else that you mentioned in the ordinance that applies. So at this time, I'd like to make the motion that in accordance with Bernalillo County Ordinance 2015-9, as it applies to the Detention Facility Oversight Committee, Section 3.4, I move that the Oversight Committee work with the county manager to prepare a scope of work and extend the contract with RCI, an investigative firm already on contract with Bernalillo County, and that the scope of work investigate for its findings result in a report directly to the committee. So I'm looking for a second on that.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Before we ask for a second, may I ask for some information from staff, Mr. Chair?
Do you want a second?
Second.
I'd like to have a second. We can
I'll
always
second.
move it.
I'll
Okay,
second.
we have a motion and a second, and we have a discussion on the table. Dina?
Thank you. Actually, I have a couple of things, but to start with, I'd like to ask staff, is that company available, or do we need to modify the motion until we know for a fact that company is indeed one that we can use in this way? And I'm sorry to usurp your occupancy. I just saw some conversation among the staff, and I thought we'd take a second to step back and have that question answered.
We currently have an agreement that was awarded, and it was a multiple award, and Robert Caswell Investigators, RCI, is one of the awarded vendors. That particular contract that was solicited was for various types of investigative services. So we, depending on the scope of services specifically, would determine whether or not we would be able to use that particular vendor. But they are on contract for investigative services.
And Mr. County Attorney, sorry, I'm going to get this eventually. Is there any issues with McClendon with regard to this group?
There are.
Okay, so perhaps we need to step back and maybe we can, Rocky, we can maybe amend that to not have a specific individual listed at this point until we...
When you say issues, what issues are we talking about?
There's they have investigated quite a few incidences already, so I guess that's all I can say with regard to it.
Nothing derogatory, that they do nothing wrong? Can they continue investigating?
I guess my concern would be that you would have an independent investigators, and since you probably don't want to hire investigators that have a history of investigating use of force incidents, because then it's colored with the prior investigations. It probably, for the purpose of having an independent review, it would probably be more helpful to have fresh eyes on it. But that, I guess, is maybe the best way I can articulate that.
Dina, you still have the floor.
Okay, so perhaps we can suggest a friendly amendment to take that particular individual's name, or that group's name out, and replace it with just a consulting group to be determined later. Does anybody have any issues with that? Thank you. I'd also, if I may, Mr. Chair, with regard to this,
Let me stop you for a second. Point of information.
I believe we said last time there were 4 firms on contract.
Yes, there are.
And are they all conflicted, Mr. County Attorney?
Two of the firms have been used widely, so they're, in other words, they either have past investigations or current investigations. So to that extent, would they be independent? They currently have been used or have been used or are being used by the county at the jail on McClendon issues. So I worry about that. Isn't that currently independent firms, since they're currently or have recently in the past worked for the county? 2 of the other firms, I think, probably have not. They've been more on the civil side on HR countywide. And I don't know off the top of my head completely, but I would think 2 of them probably have done a lot less to nothing with the jail. 2 of them have done a lot with the jail. And that's where I worry about it being an independent review.
So to the vice chair's point, it would be good if we could make this somewhat agnostic to which provider is in the resolution.
Thank you.
We also, Chair, members.
Yes, Lisa.
We also have the option of also soliciting a separate solicitation to see if we could obtain additional interest, additional offers. So that's also a choice.
Thank you, Lisa, and for members in the audience that, members of the board as well, although we've discussed it on item number 4.4, any firms hired to conduct independent investigations at the request of the board shall be hired through a competitive bid process. As such, these individuals we've been talking about have already done the competitive bid process. We're seeing we may or may not be able to utilize those. If not, we may, as we're leading ourselves to the agenda item at this particular point, still may be discussing about something independent or agnostic, as you said, sir. Thank you very much. Dean?
Mayor, one more, a couple of points that I'd like to bring to the attention of the board. I sent an email to you earlier in the week. It was brought to my attention over the week that there was a study with regard to PREA, and that is the Prison Rape Elimination Act. And my concern is that study was done in November of last year. This board was created in January. Upon that first meeting, we asked for any kind of studies that have been done, any compliance with PREA, the compliance with ACA. We were given nothing. As it turns out, there was indeed a study that was done by an outside independent agency as the Institute for Social Research at the University of New Mexico. I asked one of the principal investigators to join us tonight. He unfortunately was not able to, but did recommend that the board look at the summary of that study, and the summary of that study indicated that there was no consistency in the reporting. And upon further questioning of that individual, it turns out that it was right in the middle of a very large federal grant that was given to MDC to figure out how to train or to train staff with regard to PREA. If there's any question why we're looking at an independent investigator, I think that in and of itself tells us that there was, I'm not indicating that that consistency of non-compliance with board requests exists currently, but I believe that that was a historic trend and concerns me deeply that we do not have all of the information, and an external, independent, agnostic individual may be the way we need to do to go to really get to the bottom of what is truly going on at the jail and why that money was brought in and not clearly the training. At least halfway through the study or halfway through the training, the funding cycle was inconsistent, and I'm not sure. I'd love to hear from staff about where that money, how that money was the training happened. Was it just not enough people were trained, only certain individuals were selected to be spent, that training was spent to, we're at a loss, because to me the fact that there was widespread inability to consistently, one, define what PREA was among the staff is incredibly disconcerting to me. I'm beyond frustrated that individuals are still being attacked and raped and treated in such a way that is the indignity in the community. We cannot keep doing that and have an organization and a facility that deserves the respect it gets. And I want to know and get to the bottom of this.
Mr. Chairman, if I can, we have our PREA auditor here, Amy Ortiz. Maybe she can explain that more fully, because she was also in when they were doing that particular study. So let me see. Yes, there she is. Okay.
Yes, I'm comfortable with it. Thank you.
I'm Amy Ortiz. My actual title is a Special Projects Coordinator, that I'm working on PREA specifically. So the grant that you are referring to, MDC did not, we received a grant, yes. The grant covered part of our staff that was hired onto the grant. It covered part of their salary, but most of it went to JDI, who was our consultant on the grant. So, and to the, to UNM, who was also contracted on the grant. So as far as money for training, we did not receive any money for training. That money had to come out of our general budget. And we didn't have the money for that at the time. We did start the training then, and it has been completed now for uniform staff.
So, if I may, Mr. Chair, can you, when you say that that money went to UNM and that money went to this contractor, what precisely was that money being used by those two entities for?
So the grant was, and I wasn't involved in obtaining the grant, I was hired onto the grant. So my understanding, and Virginia, please correct me if I get this wrong, but my understanding is that the grant was obtained to get MDC in compliance with PREA. We were granted the funds to be a kind of a pilot project for the PREA project. So JDI, which is Just Detention International, which it was very significant in putting together the law and the standards for PREA, consulted with us and kind of helped us get where we needed to be as far as what JDI was all about, or excuse me, what PREA was all about, and what we needed to do to get in compliance. So,
and the university's portion of that?
The university's portion was to, what they did was to pull the stats to see where we were as far as pulling stats, as far as how we could get stats, because stats are a big part of PREA, and to kind of evaluate the training that we were putting together and how it was going over with our staff.
And my concern of that is that study that you're referring to and that I was referring to indicates that halfway through this process, or according to the investigator, halfway through the process, there still was no consistency among the stats had been changed 2 years prior than the way they had been reported out previous. So there was really no way to analyze whether or not PREA was reported correctly. It seemed like it was sort of a mishmash of report outs, and I'm not sure what attributed the change in reporting or why the reporting was done a certain way one year, and 2 years later it was done a different way, and the numbers seemed to decline substantially when that data was done in a new format, which is my biggest concern. Does that mean that we're intentionally not reporting out? Or is there, what is the consistency now? And have we gone back to look at that? Because my interpretation of the study, which is all I have to go off of because we don't have any PREA data about how consistent we are at reporting, or what the, is there something that shows this board that PREA is being reported in a uniform fashion, so that we're getting common results and we can actually determine how many assaults are happening in the jail at any time? Because the fact is we should be getting 0 assaults in the jail. 1 is too many.
Right.
And if we don't even have a consistent way of reporting, and we don't have staff that's trained in a consistent way to recognize what needs to be reported, and I'm not even going to mention the fact that we have in the past had individuals who are actually committing those offenses themselves that are on staff. we need to find a better way. And I'm asking you, give me something that shows us that we're in a different state than we were in November of last year.
We are in a different state, and I'm not sure why you have not received the annual report from 2015, and I also do stats quarterly, and send out quarterly reports that apparently you haven't received either.
We have not.
Okay, I can absolutely get those to you. But we have revised our system so that it's easier to pull stats. It's still not perfect, but that part of my position is going through every single day and checking the incidents that have occurred and looking at them and pulling the stats if they're PREA-related to ensure that they're being reported, to ensure they're being investigated.
And while I appreciate that, and I appreciate that the stats are critical, what's more important to me is that the reporting is getting done in a systematic way and that we are halting these incidences. I don't, you know, if we're getting reports and they're reporting 6 a week or 20 a week or 20 a year, it's too many.
I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree.
So what I'm asking is also what measures, can you explain to this board what measures have been put into place that the training for all staff, and I think not just uniform staff, I think this needs to be a training that needs to go across the board to all staff, because all staff interact with the folks that are at the jail, and we need to make sure that everyone is aware of this and what they need to look for.
Right. And we absolutely do need to, we still need to train civilian staff. We have a lot of things that are getting in the way of that right now. Use of force training is on the top of the list right now, so we are dealing with that right now. It was critical that we got our uniform staff trained, and that was done. We finished that in March of this year, and we do, the PREA training has been included in the academy cadet training as well. So we do, every time we get a new cadet class, then we have PREA training for that staff as well. We also do contractor and volunteer training once a month. So anyone who's coming into our facility to do contract work or volunteer also gets PREA training. We're working on it. We're not there yet, but we are certainly working on it. And we hope to get civilian staff started soon.
Julie, would you like to?
Sure. Mr. Chairman, Madam Vice Chair, thank you for bringing this up, and thank you for being here. Whatever information that you're asking for, we absolutely should provide, and it shouldn't even take that long to provide it. So I'm not going to give you any excuses, but the money that we've spent, we will provide you whatever reports that we've obtained as a result of that funding. We'll make sure that you get them. We met with the New Mexico Association of Counties last week, and I received a call today because we were discussing that very thing. You need to know, and we need to know what's being done about it. So we looked into it, and there is a person who provides training at a very minimal rate, and we're going to look into who this person is, Shannon Reynolds, and he charges $4,500 for training. So, because he does training statewide, we'll look into it with them, and of course, we'll let, our county attorney will be contacting this person, but absolutely. So we will get you every report that was generated from the funds from that grant or anything. We will get to you, and then we'll also get you some information on that training.
And I think it would behoove the county to have the Institute go back and relook at if it's consistent now as opposed to the study they did in November that showed it was inconsistent.
We will absolutely do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have the following members. I have Marie and then Michael. Marie?
No, I'm sorry.
Yes, please. I'm just looking to see if anybody else wants on.
Ms. Ortiz, on the reports of these, of course, anytime there's a sexual assault, it is a criminal case. Are these being reported criminally?
Yes, they are.
Okay, so we should technically be able to go to BCSO records and pull every single sexual assault that has occurred at that location. Is that
At
correct?
least a CAD number, yes. You should
At
be
least a CAD number.
Right, because it's not up to us whether they continue with the report, with the investigation or not. That's BCSO decides whether or not to continue an investigation once it's reported to them.
Okay, well, they are required to investigate. If somebody reports a crime, they're going to investigate. Now, whether they close it out for pending further leads, and that kind of thing, I understand that. But technically, every single sexual assault that has occurred at MDC should be accompanied by a police report.
Correct.
Okay. And the criminal case is then handed over to BCSO?
Yes, yes.
Are the 3 investigators that are there, are they assisting with that part of their duties?
Yes.
Okay.
When a sexual assault occurs, they are notified and they usually respond pretty immediately.
Well, that's another benefit of them being there on site.
Yes, yes.
So, yes, and I understand, and just so the rest of the audience understands that some of these may be false allegations, and they do have. They do have. So,
Yes. And we continue to do an internal investigation as well to look at policy and procedure violations, to look for those kind of things. So there's actually 2 investigations going on pretty much simultaneously.
thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Marie. Mr. Bradshaw?
Well, let me just ask you, on the, so when you received it was a federal grant?
Yes.
So you made some representations about the performance of what services, what would happen as a result of the grant. Did that include representations that a certain number of people in the facility would be trained under PREA?
What the grant read, I believe, is that staff training would be initiated. I'm not sure what the exact wording was. Do you recall?
I don't recall.
I don't recall.
Sort of an important point.
Okay. Mr. Chair.
Mr. Manager?
So the purpose of the grant funds was to be used for personnel training, technical assistance, data collection, and equipment to prevent investigation and prosecute prison rape.
So did we spend the money on the intended purpose? It sounds like in training we're a little bit light. Is that right?
Right. My understanding is that we did not receive any money from the grant to do the training. Is that for developing the training? The
But we
training
need to
was
be in compliance with what the grant says, and it sounds like we didn't do the training piece, which is the critical piece, and thank you, Madam Vice Chairman, for bringing this forward. So that's a critical piece. So have we closed out the grant, and have we filed a report saying that we
the grant ended.
completed and consistent with the terms of the grant?
The grant ended in August of 2014 or 2015.
But we didn't do the training, and that's one of the key elements of the grant. Did we?
The training had begun, but it was not completed, yes. And that was in the final report, that the training had been initiated, but it had not been completed.
That would be a good report for us to have, is the closeout on that grant. I think that would be good to have information.
And the report was actually done by the state because our grant was, it was a pass-through through the DPS.
That's fine, but it's based on information that they get from you.
Correct.
It's information
Correct.
that they get from you. That's fine. Let me ask you, is the jail still accredited?
Excuse me?
Do you know if the jail is accredited still in every
Through
way?
ACA?
Well, there are 2 accreditations, if I recall. So we're accredited even though we haven't completed this training, and it hasn't had any material effect on the accreditation of the jail?
Correct.
Okay. I guess one of the questions that I had, that I asked, I sent a couple notes out. One was, and this doesn't involve this particular incident, but just now back to the subject of the investigator, was that the sheriff has how many people in the jail facility? Is it 3 or is it a greater number now? And are they conducting investigations? And if so, how many criminal investigations are they conducting? And I'm talking about not the substance abuse stuff that we're always seeing, where they were getting stuff in and smuggling it out and that kind of stuff. But I'm talking about criminal investigations where it's staff to staff, staff to inmate, inmate to staff, or inmate to inmate. Those investigations. How many ongoing investigations are currently underway at the jail?
I will defer that.
Mr. Chairman, I think
Mr. Ruiz?
Major would be the person to answer that question, but our the head of OPS.
So the question is on criminal investigations, not necessarily related to the substance abuse stuff, which is always
And you're talking particularly in regard to sexual assault and sexual abuse?
Well, not just sexual assault, but we're talking about use of force. We're talking about hiring an investigator, and I want to know, get a sense of what you guys are doing, because it is bearing on whether. I want to make sure that we are very careful not to impede any investigation from the Sheriff's Department. So the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department, how many investigations do they have underway?
Right. So, well, we try to keep the administrative portion of our investigations and the criminal portions as separate as possible, just because of the different considerations, and we don't want to mingle information that can either be a detriment to either side of the investigations. Obviously, there's certain things we can gain information-wise on the administration side that they can't use in a criminal investigation side, but there is certain things that we can do on our side, or that we can use from the criminal side. You know, we can use everything on our side, but they can't necessarily use everything on their side. So we try to stay as separate as possible. For that reason, I don't have an accurate number regarding everything that they're doing, but me and Sergeant Lerner, who's at the jail, do communicate, and at the point where they do finish up an investigation. Or
so give me a number. How many investigations are ongoing? Can you give me a ballpark?
From BCSO, I do not know, sir. I do not know on the BCSO side.
I mean, is it more than 10?
Because they get reports initially, like Amy said, but we don't necessarily get that initial report up front.
So who knows? Do you know, Tom? I mean, I can't believe you guys don't know. That's part of the problem. Hold it. Tom, please wait. I'm speaking. Part of the problem is we don't know the information, and that's what we're trying to get at.
Right now, it looks like what we have from BCSO, they have 11.
Okay, so 11 cases.
I'm sorry, say that again so the rest of the board can hear that, Tom.
They have 11 right now, 9 are pending and 2 are complete.
Those are administrative investigations only, those are not criminal. We are utilizing the BCSO contract service to assist us with our administrative investigations. So those aren't the BCSO unit at the jail, that is a separate service.
Well, wait. So who is conducting the separate service for these criminal? You said they're criminal investigations, so who's doing the investigation?
No, that form that Chief Ruiz has is strictly administrative investigations. That is for ongoing administrative investigations, not criminal.
So I thought they were criminals. So.
Right, no, those are only administrative.
So I guess we don't know on the criminal investigation.
We don't know how many criminal investigations we have going on at the jail right now.
Correct.
BCSO? Okay, so I think we need to ask BCSO.
And I think, thank you very much, and I'm just going to, I think that, so we can stay on track of where we're going here, I think that is some of the reasons that we need to have an investigator to see some of those things that we don't know, and we can ask someone to find out for us. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that is the intent of that. So, Mr. Brasher, you have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I mean, the reason for the question is that we certainly don't want to impede any current ongoing investigation. I'm trying to get a sense for what we're looking at, and I think that's a reasonable thing to think about when we're talking about hiring an investigator. Is what is, you know, what's ongoing, what's out there right now, what is the scope of the problem, and if I could yield, Mr. Chairman, to Mr.
Murray?
Mr. Chairman, there's a real real significant issue. Whenever a criminal investigation is launched, the administrative side should be notified right away, because what? You're looking at possible discipline. And that is a major breakdown in my opinion. I have never heard of a criminal investigation started on an employee and not have the personnel part of the investigative body notified. You should know every single criminal case that is reported, even if you don't know what the status is, you should know that one has been launched, because you have to prepare to do the administrative after they finish. Sometimes you may have to start simultaneously, like we heard. And so to me, that is a terrible breakdown in communication in the system. That is basic. No wonder we don't know. Mr. Major?
So one thing that I do want for you all to take into consideration is the new OPS has only been operational for about 2.5 months. We are, and currently what our staffing is myself, 1 investigator, and 2 admin assistants, and that's all the resources we have. So I do want you to take that into consideration. We are in the process of establishing those better lines of communication. We are in the process of establishing a referral process for, and making it widespread, our referral process, so we do have that immediate communication back and forth from the criminal to the administrative side. Obviously that takes time. All that has to be passed down, through the lines of supervision, through the lines of communication, and we have to get everybody on the same page. Obviously in a large facility, it's going to take a little bit of time. But again, we're in the process of establishing all that, because I completely agree with you 100% that that's exactly the way it should work. And what we're doing on the front end is, at the time that these cases are coming up, the referral process as it stands now is those lower level supervisors, whether it be captain, lieutenant, are supposed to be completing the referral to our office, which is what we kind of discussed previously in the last meeting. They're supposed to be conducting at any side of potential misconduct or any issues, or even further review, whatever it may be. We're supposed to be receiving those referrals immediately, and there's even a section on the referral where they're to put the BCSO CAD number and the case number and the law enforcement agency involved. So that information should be included in the referral that we receive. Again, it's a matter of getting that process fully implemented and everybody on board with what the expectation is on that going forward.
Mr. Chairman, and it's not a personal thing, it's not meant to put you on the spot. I mean, this is a critical issue for this board. We had a public safety advisory board. Hank sat on it, I sat on it. I'm reading about this stuff for the first time, and I've been sitting and dealing with this issue for what, 6 years? This is unbelievable. And so we need to get a handle on making sure that we're getting the appropriate information that we need. I've sent 2 memos out, and Ms. Morgesbacher, thank you very much for following up to call me and ask if we could get more information. And I sent one out prior to that, and it's asking general use of force questions. And what we constantly will get is that we recognize it's a problem, we know it's going to need change, we know things are going to need to change, it's going to take some time, and we can't hear that meeting after meeting that it's going to take some time for change. It needs to happen now. We need to make that change, and I think what you do is you go back and you look at that mission statement for the jail. Have you ever seen it? The actual mission statement for the jail, it's actually pretty well written, and it describes what you guys need to be doing. And here's how we implement that mission statement. And so that you come up with goals and objectives, and when the funders, the policy setters who come up with that policy document, when they budget money, they can address the problems and needs, the goals and objectives, and everything that supports that mission statement. And that's what we expect is going on here. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much, and Ms. Morgesbacher, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Mr. Andrews?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 4 points, if I might. It's disturbing to think that PREA was signed into law in 2003 and we're having this conversation. Second thing is, setting aside the newness of OPS, congratulations on your role. The fact that the jail administration does not know how many open cases there are with BCSO is disturbing as well. Lastly, I think that, not second to last, the appetite for this investigator that's on the agenda today might be somewhat ameliorated by responsiveness to the members of this board. Response has been slow or incomplete or not coming at all. And I think that lack of information contributed to why this is on today's agenda. And Leslie, without that information, how we would possibly frame the work statement on any given issue for any investigator is unclear to me. The background is crucial, and clearly we do not have it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. Mr. Valdez?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Vigil, can you kind of give me an idea of what kind of workload you're under and based on the number of incident reports you get?
Sure, correct. And Chief Ruiz had that paper. That's our current caseload that we have ongoing now with OPS. It's about 42. Or Chief, I don't know if you have that paper. You can kind of maybe read those stats that I handed to you. Or I can read it for you if you like. I'm going to pass it over. So those are actual referrals that we've received to our office. I did recently pull some of the statistics of what I was able to for our database for some of the incidences that we've been incurring. From the date I was hired up until around August 17th, according to the data that we were able to pull out of our database, we had roughly around 749 unique incidences, overall incidences.
I didn't catch that.
749 unique incidences, roughly, because there still is a few duplicates in there. Out of those 749 from the same period, from May 9th to August 8th, again, there are some duplicates, but roughly about 200 of those were use of forces, according to our database. So that's a little insight into some of the work that we're supposed to be responsible for and overseeing and overlooking and investigating and looking into.
Are you adequately staffed?
Well, currently it's myself. We're set up for fully staffing to have two full-time investigators and then 2 admin staff. That's what we've been allocated to. In my experience, it's going to be a heavy caseload for the investigators, and then including myself, to review the reports and review all the information and the work coming forward. Correct.
Sounds like you should make a recommendation. What you need. I don't know if it's possible, but it's a time to hear.
Well, I mean, I don't want to be premature, sir, because we have been in discussion. Obviously, everything's a work in progress. You know, with the new interim chief, coming on board, we have been in discussion. So we are in the works to kind of alleviate some of the issues. I mean, again, everything takes time to implement. So I don't want to be premature at this point and kind of, institute something that we potentially already are working on to try it. But in the meantime, currently, yes, it is difficult at this point to keep up.
So we do also have, thanks to the Sheriff's Department, we have those 4 contracted investigators as well, who do administrative and can do criminal investigations.
Yes, that is a service that we have taken advantage of as well. They're currently investigating 11 of our cases on that side.
Administrative.
Yes, administratively, correct.
Ms. Baca, would you clarify those? Who are they, and are they in addition to the other 4? What is the total?
As far as the investigators?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so to my knowledge, it's yourself, and then there's another investigator that, are you in the process of hiring?
Yes, we are interviewing this week for that position, that vacant position, our second.
Okay, so at the MDC, then you all have 2 investigators, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then at the Sheriff's Department, there are a total of 4 who are assisting the MDC, who are dedicated to assisting the MDC.
Thank you. Rocky, you have one.
Pardon, sir?
You have one.
Okay, well, we still have a motion on the floor.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that. So this is the discussion of the motion.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Casey?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all. I want to go back to Amy for just a minute. I read the report this morning and was also, I think, shared with my colleagues here the dismay. One of the things, and I want to go back to this before I talk about something else, but was the mislabeling or miscoding of incidents. And I just want to hear from you. It looks like there was a number of incidents that had been reported as misconduct that were actually determined to be sexual assaults. And that concerns me greatly.
It concerned me greatly too when I first came on. I was hired on in 2013. So those were some of the things that we looked at and pointed out to the to UNM, to the ISR, so that they could look into those kind of things, because we weren't understanding why things were being so misconstrued in the reporting either. We have, since then, we have put together in our reporting system, it's a form basically that's mirrored after the SSV, which is the federal reporting form, so that it's very, how can I say it? It's very easy, it's very user friendly. So it's basically, is this what happened? And this is the definition of that. Or is this what happened? And this is the definition of that. So it's basically just radio buttons. And we can pull our stats off of that form, which makes it a lot easier for me and makes it a lot easier for our staff to know how to label things or how to report them when they're entering that information.
And I know that this, thank you ma'am, and I know that the board has asked for some additional reports. Are we able to get that information as well? What has been reported to you? On those, I can't remember, radio buttons, I guess.
Yes,
what radio buttons have been
that.
pushed?
So so the annual report and the quarterly reports, that's where all of my numbers come from. So I will get those to Mr. Ruiz so that he can get them over to you. And if you have questions, please.
And Amy, can you, thank you, and can you also explain to me what the mechanism is for inmate reporting should they believe that they've been a victim of sexual violence at the jail?
We have several. They can report directly to an officer, which is most of the way that we get reported, because I also track that, how things are being reported. We also have an internal reporting line that's called the crime tip line that can only be accessed through an inmate phone. And then we have a line that for outside reports for anyone who, a third party to report through the contact center. And also through, the inmates can also report to an outside line from an inmate phone to the compliance office, the Bernalillo County Compliance Office.
How is it communicated to inmates that their information will be protected if they report?
It's on the posters, and we have not initiated inmate education yet. That's another place where we're working on. We're very close to that, but it will also be in the education that we're giving them. We are handing them paper handouts of education right now, but the comprehensive education that's required within 30 days of their booking has not been rolled out yet.
So, as a citizen, I want to know how is it being conveyed that there will be no retaliation or otherwise inaction against an inmate who reports sexual violence?
So that is also in the education to the inmates, and there is.
But they haven't. They
haven't received that part of the education.
So
yet.
they haven't.
No, they have not.
So, thank you, Amy, and I'm sure you can appreciate all of this information. Certainly makes me uncomfortable. We're kind of in this, we're going forward, but we haven't gone far enough. And in the meanwhile, we have people experience assault, predatory behavior at the facility. But I know from my own experience, having worked both at the Rape Crisis Center and now at Crossroads for Women, that there's a lot of mixed feelings about what happens if somebody tries to report sexual violence, especially if it's been perpetrated against them by a staff person. Really, and as one of my colleagues said, PREA was instituted on the federal level in 2003. We are so far behind the curve. It's shameful. We still have people being assaulted in the facility, and some of those aren't going reported. I say that because I know that from people I work with, and you know, MDC's got a whole lot of stuff in front of it right now, and this, in my book, although it technically by definition might not fit in use of force, but this is a forceful action of power and control.
Absolutely.
And I think really, and not to put it squarely on your shoulders, because I don't think that's where it belongs. You're just a piece of the puzzle. But I think we're long overdue, and I don't think the county can afford to wait to get these things in motion. But I also think that it concerns me that we still don't know or understand if we have a good reporting system, or if it can somehow be manipulated or corrupted if somebody chooses not to put forward accurate information. I just think there needs to be, well, I know that there needs to be a much clearer understanding for the inmates and a very clear understanding for the people that work in the facility about their rights and their roles. And I don't believe that the inmates that I've spoken with feel that they can trust the inmate line for guarding their confidentiality. So I don't know if this gets lumped in together with the rest of what we're speaking of tonight, but I think when we're looking at investigating what's really going on, I, for one, am going to push that PREA become one of our major focal points. You know, it's traumatic to go into jail as it is. If you haven't been on that side of it, you may not understand that, but then if you are the victim of sexual violence perpetrated against you by a staff person or another inmate, you know, that begins a very, very serious and sometimes, in fact, deadly spiral downward in terms of recovery from that event. So, disappointing at best for me, I guess, to know that we still haven't taken this issue seriously enough to make sure that we are at the top of our game. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, members. I think everyone has spoken. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring us back to the motion at hand. And I know, Kenny, I'm going to be asking you, Ms. Martinez, asking you to maybe help us with the wording on it, or whoever feels appropriate. I think we talked about one change that is needed. But I want to go back to what Mr. Booker said, that as we move forward with this investigator for this particular committee, as we make sure that within that scope of services does not interfere with any ongoing current investigations. I think that is one of the most important things we can do here, but that does not detract from the fact that we need to have some information, and somebody, because we're all part-time people here, doing it of our own volition here, coming in our own time, we need somebody to be able to keep track of exactly what's going on, what reports are out there, what information we need to go. I mean, Ms. Ruiz has done an excellent job. By no means, no reflection at all on what you're going, but I think you're getting some of the information you might be interested in finding out what we find out. And I believe that that's where it's coming to that point. There's a whole lot going on. I think we need to have that ability. If not, I don't think they would have put it in this particular ordinance if they didn't feel the need for us to have that and utilize it as such. With that, Kenny, I don't know if you want to going to give us any advice on how we might frame the eventual motion that we're going to have right now. But if I would turn it over to you if you want to say some words, sir. If not, Lisa, you may want to chime in as well. I'll give you both that opportunity before I take any action on this motion.
I think the motion was well stated in that Mr. Valdez referred specifically to the ordinance by subsection where it gives the authority to do this. The only caveat I would have added, and I think it was you guys took that as probably not naming a specific person. And I would leave the motion open for a review under the scope of services. So this, a lot of this would be in the documents, that it could be an existing provider as long as it doesn't interfere with, and that could include people that have previously or are currently conducting investigation, and or leave it with the option to open it up for a new RFP, or to be completely safe, just set it out for a whole new RFP, which would include the current contractors, but you open it up for a whole new look, and then allow people to apply, including current contractors, if they can respond to the RFP language that would include Mr. Booker's language, which is also the language in the ordinance that it wouldn't interfere with current ongoing investigations. I think the motion's good. If you want to look at the list of current providers, you could just include them, or just say everybody RFPs it, including the current proposed.
Lisa, would you help us on that one?
I concur with County Attorney.
Okay. So with that in mind, I think we've had the discussion on the necessity for the motion. We've looked at some rationale for it. Again, I would only go back to the rationale. I think that's most important for myself is that the county continues to operate a safe and secure detention facility, taken right from the ordinance itself, that strive to meet or exceed national standards and constitutional requirements. Our goal here is to meet or exceed. We're not just going to be satisfied with the day-to-day. And with that, Marie, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't, did you close the discussion yet?
Not yet, but I'm going to be,
Point to me.
I'm looking for a motion here. I mean, call for the
He's
question.
going to amend his motion
Okay.
to include that.
Thank you, that's what I was looking for.
But prior to that, I just want to make a statement too for the board, for our knowledge, that these contractors have already been working for the county, and even though I'm sure they have provided quality investigations, it still seems like nothing has been, or not nothing, I'm sorry, but things still have fallen through the cracks, even though maybe they provided a good investigation and the administration decides, okay, thank you for the investigation, but we're still not going to discipline this person, and we're still going to do this. So I just feel it's really important to have an independent person that is totally new, with new eyes, and our function is different. We're not going to be conducting investigations. We're going to be gathering information about investigations and document gathering and trying to put information together on behalf of the board. So I think within that scope, obviously it has to be a private investigator, somebody licensed, because they're going to be getting official documents, and we need to have that, you know, for insurance purposes and everything else. But the scope is going to be different. They're not going to be handling employee issues, per se. They're going to be handling, gathering information for us about things that are already happening over there. So it's not, we're not going to start new investigations. So that's my statement, that to caution about contractors that are already on, that have already been.
Would you like to reframe it, or Rocky, do you want to reframe the motion?
I would just like to strike making the recommendation to our RCA, what was it? RCI, and leave it open to negotiating with existing companies on contract. Now, I'm taking the position that we should act on an emergency basis and not go back out on bid, because the same people that are bidding now, that are on contract now, will bid again. It will be a waste of money and time. And it's critical that we get the information that we're looking for as soon as possible, and we could start negotiations and, with the people on contract or whoever's selected, and get somebody on board as soon as possible.
On that.
With all due respect, Rocky, I have to side with Marie on this. I think that the individuals who have already been there and folks who have already spent some time there, I think we need to look out for new individuals who don't have that experience, who come to this with a fresh eye and may be able to look at things a little differently. I think the whole point of this investigator is really to pull those reports both from BCSO and from OPS, but to make sure that the results that they can tell us are exclusive of what, or are new and fresh eyes on the reports that have already been done. And I think our ultimate goal is to be able to advise per our requirement to the commission and allow the commission to make decisions based on those. But if we're just rehashing what somebody else has already seen, I don't believe that we're going to get the cleanest view of what is really going on. And I think there may be nothing. I mean, they may find that everything's in order, that the study, the research that BCSO is doing, the stuff that the folks over at OPS are doing, I'm saying that correct, right? But we need to have that packaged together to be able to report out. And I really feel like an independent, outside, external group that hasn't been involved is key to having that done.
Mr. Chairman?
Lisa, do we, hold on, Lisa, how many do you have on? We talked about just one that we eliminated, obviously. How many others are out there available that have already passed through the process that the ordinance allowed us to do, because we had them go through the whole process of being RFP'd?
So, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, there are 4 total contractors that are on contract. County Attorney mentioned that of the 4, there are 2 that have been heavily involved with NDC investigations.
So we have 2 others there.
So that narrows it down to 2. But as Ms. Archuleta was stating, we can, in fact, that is, I did mention that was an option as well. We could work with the committee to develop a scope of services, and we can solicit a new RFP that is specific to the requirements of the board. And we could also assist the board in expediting the process if need be.
Thank you, Rocky.
Mr. Chairman.
Michael? I'm sorry.
I would just, perhaps in the motion, if the board would allow the chair to review the RFP so we make sure we get it right for what the board wants, and I'm sure the chair can communicate with its board members. But that way, instead of having to reconvene a meeting, if it's kind of mid-meeting term, you can take a look at it and make sure we're capturing exactly what you would like to have done as a...
Thank you very much.
That would be part of it.
I would agree with that one. Michael?
Mr. Marquez, I guess I'm fine with that. I think it would probably be the chair and the vice chair that would take a look at it. It's probably not fair to do that just to the chairman. Rocky, you're comfortable with it?
I'm comfortable with it.
I'm not, I guess I agree with you, and I would not want to use an existing contractor for this. I think having some fresh eyes would be good. And
We'll see if we can put it on next expedited matter. We'll work with you on that one. Do you feel, do you have enough information for a motion?
I have lots of information.
If not, I think we're going to utilize what you have, and we're going to add something on that one. Rocky, if you could, you want to restate that, or do you have that written down?
I'll just read the motion.
Okay, please.
In accordance with Bernalillo County Ordinance 2015-9, as it applies to the Detention Facility Oversight Committee, Section 3.4, I move that the Oversight Committee work with the county manager to prepare a scope of work and extend the contract with companies already on contract that have gone through the bidding process, and hire an investigative firm to work with the county and develop a scope of work with the county manager and report its findings directly to the board.
We have an amended motion and any addition to the motion. Madam Chair?
If we can add a friendly amendment that would include also putting it out for new bids as well, and not just take an original 4. I mean, I prefer to make the whole thing out to a new bid as opposed to using existing
Are you amending the motion?
I am amending the motion.
And I have a second.
You have a motion and a second to the motion, that's amended motion, you have a second amendment and motion to amendment to that. I think the only part that I would ask someone to add to the second amended motion is, I believe, the part that Mr. Martinez said that this would be brought forth so we could hurry it up, we could put it in an expedited manner, brought forth to the chair and vice chair for an oversight.
That's how I understood your motion.
That's correct.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second on the second amended motion.
I have a question.
Any discussion? I'm gonna go back to discussion.
When we say expedite, what kind of time frame are we looking at?
For the state procurement code, we would have to advertise for a minimum of 10 days. We would advertise for a minimum of 10 days. We would then review the proposals. I would say we can have a contractor on board within no later than 30 days.
Okay. Any other further questions?
We would give the chair and vice chair that timeline, and if there's any extensions or, even if it happens, we would certainly keep you in the loop.
Okay.
These things happen in publications.
Sure. And that's why we're coming back in, which was, everybody understands that that's a motion. A motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Is there any objection to the motion? Seeing none, motion carries. I believe that's all we have on the agenda. Any other business come before the committee? Seeing none?
Good job, Mr. Chair.
We stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.